It takes some commitment, it takes some passion to still care about something that you left over 20 years ago. I'm not sure about you, but part of the way that I tend to operate is the people in my world where I am right now, like I'm fully in with them. But I'm not actually great at following people up from like 5 or 10 years ago. You know those people who, in the school reunions, they're always on it. They're like, let's catch up. I love it in the moment when I'm there, but I forget to do that. I'm not great at it. I'm sort of not necessarily move on. I'm just living where I am. But the heart and the passion to commit to something and to care for people that you left 20 years ago is something else on an incredible level. And Edwin Keshish-Abnous has done that. He's done that because he had to flee Iran for the religious persecution he was facing for becoming a Christian. And he has, for the last 20 or so years, been broadcasting in the native language Farsi for Iranians messages of Jesus' love for them and their hope. And boy, the impact has been incredible. His story is remarkable. We're going to hear that. The work he's doing is incredible. We're going to hear that as we get stuck into this interview. Just before we do, please like, rate, review, share it with friends. We just love getting this podcast out to more and more people. Let's have a chat with Edwin. Edwin, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be there with you guys.
Edwin, before we tell a bit of your story and the deeper work of what you are now doing, could you just give us sort of that 20-second headline of what is Heart4Iran?
Absolutely, yes. Heart4Iran is a Christian ministry that is focused on Farsi-speaking regions in Middle East, which is Iran primarily, Afghanistan and Tajikistan. And our main goal is to preach the gospel to these nations who are Muslims. And we have a media arm, which is a 24/7 satellite TV where people inside the country can receive our signals free of charge 24/7. And we have a call center. Once they watch the videos, the shows, the content, they want to engage with us, they have a question, they can contact us, and we are available every day, every hour to answer the questions and help them with their spiritual journey.
I'm imagining that, this is not sanctioned by the Iranian government. So this is something that you are literally broadcasting in across sort of the borders, as it were, to allow people to have access to this.
Yes. And interestingly enough, inside the country, they have their own national TVs, but Iranians, if they purchase a small dish and a receiver, once they connect that to their TV, they can receive a lot of satellite channel stations from secular to religious to political. And we are on one of those satellites that they can receive us freely. The government doesn't like it, but we are in the country nonetheless.
I want to spend a lot more time a bit later in our conversation talking about the work that you are doing through that and some of the programs and all of those sorts of things. So we will get back to that. Could we spend a bit of time on your story first, though? You grew up in Iran and also went and have experienced through the Iranian Revolution and all of the different wars and things for your family have gone through. Could you take us back to, I suppose, growing up, what it was like and going through some of those, big, they're world-changing and traumatic events?
Yes. So I was born in 1974. This is during when we had a king. And not long after I was born, when I was about 5 years old in 1979, the Iranian Revolution happened, and Ayatollahs, these Muslim Ayatollahs, took over the country. And overnight, it seemed like the entire country changed, and it turned into a theocracy, kind of a religious dictatorship, and our social life was very much affected. Our economy was affected, and anything. I remember back in the days, I'm coming from a small Christian minority in the country. We had our own schools where we learned our own language, our own Christian content, and then they shut down a bunch of these Christian or ethnic minority schools. And the ones that remained open, they changed the curriculum. So they introduced Arabic, they introduced Islamic teachings into the country. So it was a very traumatizing time seeing all that chaos in the country. And again, not long after that, Iran engaging in a war with Iraq, a neighboring country, for 8 years. And I remember when I was a kid, the missiles go over our house and a lot of explosion here and there. I lost one of my friends actually in one of the bombing that happened in a bus when I was a kid, and that chaotic upbringing left such a deep, traumatic kind of a impression on me, and I grew up in that situation for many years. Until 1994, when I believed the gospel is the divine message from God, and I received Christ as my Savior, and that is when I converted truly to be a Christian, a born-again Christian, so to speak. That changed the trajectory of my life. That didn't mean that I came out of the challenges and all the chaotic situation. I actually got more into a more persecuted state of my life, but that was the life that I was in and living with.
So just to clarify as well, your family and your upbringing was sort of an Orthodox Christian upbringing, as it were, but in terms of, and so we're sort of always that minority group, but then you really sort of at the age of 20 said, well, actually, no, I'm really choosing Jesus here. I'm actually saying, I'm realizing this is the choice. That's it. How did that come about when I suppose there was such a, as you said, from the revolution on, like the idea of what it meant to be able to be a Christian and to even understand that, I'm imagining would be more and more limited during that time.
Yes. So and you're right. We're part of a minority group. We're Armenians. And Armenians migrated to Iran hundreds of years ago, 400 years ago, and then they got established in certain cities in Iran. And in order for them to survive, they clung to their religion, like Christianity. But clinging to their religion didn't mean they were religious at all. But that was part of their identity. And even though I was within that community, Armenian community, we as a family never owned the Bible. So I had no idea anything about the teachings of the Bible. I didn't know much about Jesus. I thought Jesus was Armenian. So that was shows how ignorant I was of my faith. But the interesting part that kind of pushed me towards that direction was when I was about 12 years old, 13 years old, I had these very strange experience that I could not really explain what it was because I didn't have anything to refer to or compare to, because I was, again, was brought up in a secular family within a Islamic community. And that strange feeling was, experience was that I knew for some reason, as if like I had some sort of a revelation or a supernatural knowledge. And again, I didn't know where it came from, but I just knew it was true, that I will be a prophet of God, meaning like I will be a messenger, a bridge between God and people. Now, in a Muslim context, if you say that you're a prophet, you immediately put yourself in a position that you're going to be persecuted, you're going to be called a heretic, and many things will happen to you. So I did not share that feeling or that knowledge and experience that I had, but I knew. I mean, as a kid, if you ask my friends, what would you want to be when you grow up? They would say, I want to be a police officer, I want to be a firefighter, or whatever they thought that was the greatest job on the earth. If you asked me back then, what would you be when you grow up? I would say I'm going to be a prophet. But that was a feeling and an experience that I had, and I never spoke to anyone, and I kept it in my heart for a long time. And then as I grew up, one of my classmates, his name was Gilbert. He was a born-again Christian. He was a Christian who was committed fully to his faith. And his father was a superintendent of the Assembly of God Church in Iran. And then he one day invited me to the church, to one of the worship sessions that they have. And when I attended that day, I believe it was his father that was preaching. His father's name was Jacob Sepian. I'll get to that in a bit. Once he was sharing the gospel, immediately immediately it made sense. There was no fighting back on my side. I didn't feel like it was a foreign idea that is being imposed. I'm being exposed to. It felt like I'm at home and I'm hearing something that I've been missing for such a long time, even though that was the very first time I was hearing the gospel message. Again, we didn't have any Bible, no exposure to Christianity in a meaningful sense at all. My attendance at the church was once or twice a year on Christmas or certain days. So I accepted that calling. I believed in the message of the gospel. I believed in the teaching of Christ. So I committed myself to be a true Christian, a born-again Christian, someone who decided to follow the teachings of Christ. And that was the beginning of my journey, which it started fantastic. It was beautiful. I enjoyed it very much because it opened up a new world to me. It gave me an identity. It was superseded anything that I identified myself as. But that didn't take long, and I got into a community that felt more pressure and the persecution and many other horrible things that happened to that community.
I know that part of your story also involves once that happened and you started getting involved, you started smuggling Bibles into the country to allow people to actually read about, Jesus and his word in that regards too. It did lead, though, as you said, to this sort of persecution that occurred, well, not to this, but the actual persecution that occurred. And ultimately you did have to actually flee your home country because of that. Yes. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. So once I came to faith, I came to the church and committed myself. Months after that classmate of mine, whose father was the superintendent and the superintendent of the church and the senior pastor of that particular church I was attending to, he was kidnapped by the government and got murdered. And then not long after that, two other pastors, one from our church, another one from a Presbyterian church, they had the same fate. So they got kidnapped and they got murdered. So immediately right after having this wonderful experience of joining a community that was like-minded, I found myself in a situation where I was fighting for my life, fighting for my faith, and trying to kind of survive within that. But again, the passion, it just grew in me. In the midst of all that persecution and the challenges and pressure that we had from the government, I got connected to some friends who smuggled Bible from different countries, and I was the one in contact with them. I was holding the Bibles. I was distributing those Bibles among the churches and the believers, and then the government found out about that activity. And I decided to leave right away because the more I stayed there, the challenges would be, and the danger would be even greater. I could lose my life over that, because the history showed us how they treated those who've been really active in their community. So I had to leave the country right away.
So that meant that I know you spent a brief time in Europe and ultimately found yourself in the US as well. But sort of immediately you started working, especially in the Farsi language, creating different programming and things like this. And where did the idea to get into more programs, whether it be sort of various media programs, had that been part of your background until then?
Yes. I mean, the Christianity was my new identity. So everything was defined by that faith. So naturally, when I moved to, the whole idea of moving to Europe and then the United States, that was in and itself, it was a supernatural thing that happened. But once I got to the United States, I naturally thought, okay, I'm a believer. I was forced to leave the country. I was exiled, and then I'm residing in a country that is has some resources. Why don't I share my faith through some mediums that is easily to get inside the country? And TV was one of the best ways to do that. So we started I started partnering with a local pastor, and then we produced content on our own with our own money, and packages and put it on the secular channel that Iranians could easily and freely receive inside the country. That was my introduction to media world right away. I did not know much about it, but I learned how to record videos, to be a host in front of the camera, how to edit it, and how to present it, and all that. And that was my journey into media world.
I would imagine, in the midst of the upheaval of all that, what that is, having to flee all these aspects. I'm thinking probably there's a decent amount of healing you're trying to go through. There's adapting to new cultures, and here you are creating these new programming as well. What was the take-up for people, and how did you get these programs and these to the right people that you wanted them to hear?
Well, yes, I mean, the programs, so we had a multi-pronged approach. So we knew that the Iranians inside the country have the tools to receive these signals. So we produced our own content. We recorded, we were in front of the cameras. Sometimes we had live shows. So we produced our own content. We partnered with some friends who were like-minded. And then we had to raise some money from here and there, again, from people that we knew, to buy airtime on these secular channels and air them. And then the other thing that I did, which was necessary to do it in parallel to TV, was to start some sort of a virtual community where Iranians inside the country could connect and be mentored, to be discipled, to learn more about their faith if they had the questions to ask. So we created this very first Iranian virtual church kind of a place. And then we gathered about 3,000 members where they registered and attended on a regular basis. So based on the feedback that we were getting, the calls we were getting, and the connections that they were making throughout the week with this virtual church, we knew that the appetite is there. People are hungry and excited to hear about this news, which is the gospel. We're
going to be back in a couple of minutes' time with the Executive Director of Heart4Iran, Edwin Keshish-Abnous. We're having a chat to him about the remarkable work that is occurring, and we're going to hear some of the fruits of that labour, some of the remarkable amounts of house churches that have popped up, those who are connecting in with a Christian faith in Iran. That's on the way next here on Towards Understanding.
Share your brand, your event, your message across 90 Christian radio stations and major cities in Australia and New Zealand by sponsoring Towards Understanding, hosted by Clayton. More than 210,000 people tune into Towards Understanding each week, and with just one sponsorship, you'll reach this immense engaged audience. Find out more about this exciting and unique opportunity now on the sponsorship page at positivemedia.com.au.
So we are right now a 24/7 satellite, Christian satellite TV, and all of it is in Farsi. The content that we put out consists of live shows. We have 10 live shows every week that goes out. That creates an opportunity for the audience to call in, ask questions, and request prayers. And that clear communication line online, on TV, it's gold to be able to connect with them. And then we also have many shows that caters to those who are curious about Christianity, those that just come to faith, or they are in their faith but they want to grow more, or those who want to be a leader in their own community and be a pastor in a house church network. So we try to provide content that resonates with all those people from different parts of their journey of faith. And we work with a lot of partners. Over 100 partners work with us. They provide content for us. So we provide a free platform for all of them to put their content on the satellite channel. Yeah. And we also, one of the important part of this ministry that I think it is necessary to go hand in hand with the production is to be able to be ready and receive calls and contacts from people inside the country, and people calling us. People are calling us. They're asking questions about the Bible. They're having doubts about their Islamic faith. So they're asking what is next. I just cannot follow my faith of my ancestors anymore. What is the alternative a lot of people are traumatized because of the challenges, the war, the revolution, and economic pressure that are going through. They call in and ask for counseling. So we have these phone agents that are available to answer their calls, both on the telephones and the social media. So it's turned out to be a fantastic, very rewarding opportunity in a ministry to be involved with.
I've got so many sort of questions just around even the broadcast of going into it. Is it dangerous for those in the country to do that? Is there a way like the government can track what they're doing if they're receiving the signal or phoning out to your numbers, things like that? How dangerous is it for people to even contact, or is that actually quite safe?
It is dangerous. Christianity, if you are converting from Islam to Christianity, is a crime. And they will find you, especially if you're active in your faith and you evangelize and share your faith with someone else. They will definitely don't like it. And if they find you, they're going to put you in jail. And that is a challenge that the Iranians know. But even though they understand the challenges and the persecution that will follow after changing your religion, a lot of them are coming to Christ. And I'll give you a very interesting stat. When you look at the government stat, when they talk about what Iranians believe, the official government stat is that 98% of Iranians are Shia and Muslim. But back in 2020, an independent survey group, they did a survey, and they come up with they found out an amazing result. In this survey, they found out that of these Iranian population inside the country, only 32% of them they identify themselves to be a Shia Muslim. That is a huge, dramatic drop from 98% to 32%. So that shows how disillusioned Iranians are, how dissatisfied they are with their Islamic faith, and they're open for an alternative faith that will answer their questions and bring them peace. And once they are they encounter the gospel, they receive the gospel of Christ, the message of Christian faith, they know this is what they need. They are ready to go through all these challenges. And we have had many cases. As a matter of fact, one of our callers on the call, we have a recording of it, as he was talking to us on the phone, these Iranian agents, they get into their house, they raid his house, they start beating that guy up, and they pick up the telephone and they say, these are all your faults because you preach the gospel, you talk about the Christianity, and people convert from their faith, the Islamic faith, to Christianity. Now this guy is on the ground, he's bleeding, and it's all on you. But the guy keeps believing, and as a matter of fact, after that, even after that, when they let him go, he evangelized, and a lot of his family members came to faith. So persecution is there, opposition is there, but despite all these challenges, they choose to follow this newfound faith because it answers a lot of their deep spiritual questions that they could not find in their previous faith.
Is there any way to know how many people are actually engaging with the media that you're putting out, or because it's a TV channel beaming in there, you can't actually know?
Yeah, it is very difficult to put a number to how many people have come to faith. I mean, we in our ministry, we have a lot of contacts. We've had about 670,000 contacts over these past 20 years. And a lot of people have come to faith. But again, since this is a restricted country, and we're not the only one preaching the gospel and involved in this type of a ministry, there are at least 3 or 4 different Christian channels and many other organizations put together their effort. The result is amazing. But one concrete way of doing it, at least give us an idea, is again the survey I mentioned that was done in 2020. Back in the before revolution, the stat shows that they were only 500 Muslim background Christians in Iran. Based on the survey that was done about 6 years ago, now it shows 1.5% of Iranians, they identify themselves as Christians. So that is something upward of 1 million people. And that is significant. when you put and consider the fact that the Iran is a restricted nation and Christianity is not welcome. So the numbers may be greater than this, but there is no way to have a concrete number because of the lack of information.
Of course, exactly. That's part of it. What I love is, and as we heard the first part of your story, is you talked about this, even before you had come to an understanding of this relationship with Jesus, this faith in Jesus, that you felt like you were called to be a prophet, somebody to sort of connect what God is trying to say to your people. And here you are doing that in a way maybe when you're sort of growing up that you would have thought through. And this is exactly what is happening. It is truly remarkable. It's also led to a lot of, I know, communities actually starting up, or house churches we might call them, through that work. And now I've got a number here of like over 300 house churches you believe have been a part of that. Is that right?
I don't have any particular concrete number talking about the house churches. There are many house churches. And then house churches is very different. It because it's of families getting together. It could be friends. There is no way of knowing how many house churches there are in the country. I know many ministries that have their own networks of churches. But for the security reasons, the numbers are kept very secret. And a lot of these house churches operate in isolation. So they make sure that they don't connect with other groups if they're not vetted or they're not really familiar with.
I want to also talk and ask you around something that I've done, this radio program for, I don't know, it's 16, 17 years. I've had lots of conversations. I've had numbers of conversations with people who have come from Iran. And one of the things that seems to be the case is that people experiencing visions of Jesus or dreams of him in the middle of the night, and that's what has led them to start conversations or seeking out the media that you are producing, or whatever it might be, seems to be inordinately high for those who are in Iran. Is that something that you also notice, or is that just sort of my small understanding of those I've interviewed? It seems like that's quite high.
That's exactly what's happening inside the country. And when you compare it to other way of coming to faith or believing in the message of the gospel, Iranians usually see visions and dreams. And actually, as a matter of fact, I'm doing the research right now on that, trying to figure out why is it like that. And part of it seems like it's because of the tradition. Part of it is because of the spiritual tradition of the mysticism. It has a very, very respected place and a popular place among Iranians. And the poetic language is very mystic in nature. So when Iranians encounter God automatically because of their background, they have this mystic experience when they come to faith. And a lot of them, I mean, I was one of them, as a matter of fact, that I shared with you. I had this unexplainable feeling and experience within me that there is some spiritual power, pulling me toward him. And then later in life, it was clear to me that was Jesus. And that is exactly how Iranians come to faith. Some of them, they have this big spiritual experience and they connect with us and then we explain what it is. Some of them, they get verses and pictures in their minds, in their dreams, in their visions that are clearly, particularly biblical stories. And they have no idea if these are out from the Bible. When they share with us, we point them to exact same location, the passage in the Bible, and they see this is really God. But you are absolutely right. Iranians mostly have visions and dreams, and that triggers them to explore even further.
Yeah, I just love that. Jesus is like, well, okay, you can shut down the government opportunity. I'm still going to reach into people's lives and speak to them, and in that incredible way. Interestingly, Edwin, one of those things, as I've started talking throughout Europe in the last year or so with different people I've interviewed, in such a secular society throughout Europe, I'm starting to hear more and more people experiencing same things who have never had a connection with Christianity and starting to have visions and dreams. And that seems to be increasing there. Interestingly, let me talk about some other parts of what this is too. I'm very interested as well of this idea, and of recent times there's been a lot more political unrest in Iran.
Yeah.
From your perspective, however that's going to shape out and what's going to occur, is this a moment, do you think, that those who can maybe come to understand about Jesus more, what role do you think the Christian church will play?
It's a very complicated situation right now. As a matter of fact, we're going to have a meeting, a conference with many organizations next week. We're going to be talking about scenarios that's going to unfold in near future, and we want to understand exactly what the church's role is and how the spiritual climate is going to be after, if this revolution is successful. A lot of unknowns here. But the church in particular is a lot more under pressure right now. And part of it is because they are already being tracked, monitored, the telephones, their life, everything is under control. And it's a perfect opportunity for Iranian government to label them as a political activist, call them Zionists, and connect them somehow to Israel. And that is what they've been doing in the last uprising. And this is what I suspect they're going to be doing next, very soon, once they have a grip over these protesters. So the Iranian church is trying to survive at this moment. And our prayer for them is to go through these challenges and hopefully come out of it unharmed. But as for what would happen after this revolution, that is a great unknown to me. Right now, the spiritual appetite is they accept and receive Christian faith very openly, and the Church of Iran has been called by our Persian word the fastest growing church in the world a couple of years ago. But will this hunger continue after the revolution, or once the current regime collapses? People's attitude toward religion is going to be one of enmity. They don't want any religion, leading their country or being very outspoken in the public arena. So we're monitoring this situation very closely to see where it's going to end.
Two final questions from me, Edwin. I could be speaking to you for hours. I have so much to just hear and learn and understand about what you are doing and the work in Iran as well. I know one of the things that you have got a passion for is to develop what is called sort of an Iranian contextual theology. I read that in some notes around you at one point, and I thought, I want to understand what you mean by that. What do you mean by an Iranian contextual theology?
Yes. So when it comes to Iranians, given the fact that they have totally different history, they are grown up in a way that their question is very different from us in the West. A very simple example: Iranians' culture is shaped by their honor and shame perspective. We in the West are innocent and guilt-oriented, so everything we look at it is that way. But the Iranians are very honor and shame-based community. And from that, their questions, their inquiry is informed. And when it comes to, and also the background in the poetry and in the mysticism and all that, they have shaped a totally different identity. So when they come to the Bible, their sets of questions is very different from the question of a Westerner in the Western world that they have totally different upbringing. So they come to the Bible with totally different sets of questions. And, I've been out of the country. I've spent most of my life outside of Iran. And I've done a test a couple of years ago, an interesting test. And I found that my cultural perspective has shifted and moved from honor and shame to way much closer to innocent guilt. I'm still not totally Western when it comes to my culture, but I'm not Iranian in the sense of the culture anymore. So when I've been teaching and sharing the gospel with Iranians, at some point I thought, when I met them in person and asked them, do you understand this? Do you get this information, this teaching that I'm giving you? And after talking to them, I figured out I'm talking a different language. I'm answering questions they're not asking. So when it comes to the contextual, I don't mean by watering down the gospel, but because I know it's a controversial topic when it comes to theology, my worry is Do we understand their questions? Do we know what they're really worried about? Do we know what needs they have, and how do they come? What kind of baggages do they bring to the reading of the Bible? Once we understand that, it's easier to be able to communicate the teachings of the Bible to them. So when we talk about the contextual theology, I just want to make sure that the gospel message, the biblical teaching, is set in a context that is easily understandable to that audience.
Let's just finally finish up with, here in Australia and New Zealand, and there's a lot of people who are listening who have a Christian faith. We acknowledge also there's people who are listening who maybe don't have a Christian faith but understand this is going out on Christian radio. What can we do? What's your challenge for us as we maybe think about what is happening for people in Iran, as we maybe pray? Maybe there's an action we should be doing. What is your, I suppose, challenge and encouragement for us as we listen to what you are doing, the work you're doing?
Sure. There's a couple of angles here. First, I want the Westerners to know that Iranians are not anti-Western. The government shows it or paints it as such, but Iranian people, they love Western culture. They know all the trends. They even have built-in English expression into their daily conversation. That's how much they're in love with the Western world. And when you speak to them, I mean, you definitely, if you look at some YouTube videos, you'll see a Westerner goes to Iran. People surround him. They love him. They receive him. They treat him well. And that that type of culture is very dominant in Iran. So Iranian is not anti-Western. I want your audience to know that they don't think that Iran's a radical Muslim. That is not the case, especially these past 3 decades. The religious attitude has changed so much. But what can audience do, a Westerner can do, is to pray for them. If you are a Christian, pray for them. If you are not a Christian and you see Iranians are going through these challenges, lobby for them and let the Western government knows that their human rights are being violated and they need help. We need international intervention here to help them be free. And then again, if you are a Christian, if you believe in a cause, I know many of people want to get into Iran and do some missionary work, humanitarian work. It is not possible, but there are many other organizations out there that have set up a system that can easily have access to the Iranian audience and help them in any way they can. Support them and stand with them, pray for them, and be a strong voice for religious freedom inside the country.
Edwin, it's been an absolute privilege to have a chat to you. Thank you for the incredible work that you are doing. Thank you for taking the time to chat to us as well. We pray for you. We wish you all the best.
Thank you very much for having me.
Edwin,
I appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me.
Edwin Abnous has been my guest. He is the Executive Director of Heart4Iran. This is Towards Understanding.